Hi, my name is Niels. I'm at the University of Vienna, and this is a brief introduction to collective responsibility. So let's focus on the question, what does it mean for a group to be responsible? We regularly make backward-looking claims about what a person or a group has done. This is called retrospective responsibility, which concerns responsibility for an action or a mission, attitude, or outcome that's either ongoing or in the past. Consider the claim that a corporation is responsible for an environmental disaster. Such a claim may concern various types of responsibility. If the corporation is causally responsible for the disaster, this merely implies that the corporation has played a causal role in bringing about the outcome, but not necessarily anything further. If the corporation could have foreseen the disaster, we may say minimally that the corporation is outcome responsible. This may, of course, also be important for questions about legal responsibility and accountability. But sometimes we want to say something even stronger. We want to say that the corporation is morally responsible, for example, when it is culpably negligent or it intended to cause the disaster, provided, of course, it doesn't have a legitimate excuse for doing so. Now, moral responsibility often concerns judgments of moral blameworthiness, and at least on some accounts, it involves the idea that agents deserve adverse treatment or negative reactive attitudes, like resentment or indignation, in response to their faulty conduct. Now, it's important to see that this need not necessarily involve punishment, because we may blame someone privately or judge someone to be blameworthy without actively blaming that person. And this could be important for the fairness of claims about groups. We also regularly make forward-looking claims. For example, humanity is responsible for mitigating climate change. Prospective responsibility, as it is called, concerns responsibility for performing an action, having an attitude, or ensuring an outcome in the future. This is often equated with obligations or duties, which can be moral, legal, social, or political. Some call this task responsibility or remedial responsibility, meaning that someone is tasked with remedying or rectifying a problem or some harm. Now, in my view, all backward-looking and forward-looking variants are relevant for groups and for claims about groups, but now I want to focus on moral responsibility claims concerning groups. What does it mean, for example, when we blame BP for the Deepwater Horizon oil spill? Now, first, we may distinguish between groups that satisfy the conditions for agency and groups that do not. Some philosophers think that organized groups with decision-making procedures, such as corporations, states, universities, that these count as agents that can have their own intentions and that can act in ways irreducible to members. Non-agential groups, on the other hand, are any collection of agents that don't together constitute a group agent. Now, there are many sorts of unstructured groups, from riot mobs to social movements to millions of people unintentionally causing climate change. Of course, on more permissible views of group agency, some less structured groups may count as agents as well. Next, it's helpful to distinguish between responsibility claims that are distributive and non-distributive. When a responsibility claim is distributive, this simply means that the group's responsibility is distributed among its members. The claim here concerns the scope of responsibility, namely what you are responsible for. And we can distinguish this from degree, which concerns how much you are responsible for, whatever it is that you are responsible for. So if the responsibility claim about the group is distributive, in the end, the idea is that all responsibility is individual. The scope is nicely chopped up into pieces, and it's helpful to see that this need not necessarily imply that each is responsible only for their own contribution. It might also be the case that agents are responsible, say, for failing to prevent someone else making a harmful contribution, or perhaps in some cases they can even be responsible for the entire collective act or group harm. In general, if a responsibility claim is distributive, the idea usually is that if we sum up all claims about individual responsibility, all blameworthiness has been accounted for. Now, collectivists think that it is possible that a group is responsible without this necessarily being true for its members. So this responsibility claim about the group is non-distributive. For example, the corporation is responsible for the disaster, but no individual is responsible because the corporate decision that ultimately resulted in the disaster are not reducible to any individual member view. Now, this kind of group level responsibility is a different level from individual responsibility, where the levels don't entail or preclude each other. And this is still consistent with thinking that often group level responsibility has implications for members, but the main idea is that the summation of individual responsibility claims does not exhaust all responsibility claims that hold true for the group. So what the group is responsible for is not the same as what the individual members are responsible for. Now, this results in the following typology. At the individual level, shared responsibility attaches to members of unstructured groups. Distributed responsibility attaches to members of structured groups. And at the group level, collective responsibility attaches to non-agential groups, whereas corporate responsibility attaches to group agents. Now, of course, not everyone will agree with this typology. Individuals will deny that there is corporate and collective responsibility. All possible responsibility claims according to individualists about groups are going to be distributive, and in the end, they only concern individuals. Now, some collectivists may accept that there is corporate responsibility, but deny that there is collective responsibility, because they think that only collective agents are groups that satisfy the conditions for moral agency, whereas groups such as mobs, social movements, or humanity arguably do not. And they think that moral agency is a necessary condition for responsibility. I hope these distinctions were helpful for thinking about responsibility in groups, and thank you for watching.